All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, boys and girls. Mr. Batman here of MrBatman.com. Hey, I wanted to go over some things with you, basically on creation and evolution. Do you know evolution is a lie straight from the pit of hell? And I'm going to prove that to you. Let me go ahead and show you. So here is our slideshow. Go ahead and take that off of there. Creation or evolution? Which one do you think makes more sense? Well, since we are created in the image of God, then I'm going to tell you right now that only creation makes any sense of all the different evidence that we see all around us. And God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. There are certain attributes that humans have that can only be chalked up to coming from God. Life would be one of them. All life comes from previous life. So we are temporary life. We ultimately have to come from an eternal living being. And a lot of people say, oh, well, the Bible's dead. We don't have to worry about that. And, you have all these different people say, oh, well, we've got all these archaeological evidences that proves the Bible wrong. Actually, no. There's never been a single fact out there, archaeological or scientific or any other, that ever refutes the Bible. Now, you'll have lots of people that try and say that does refute the Bible, but no, it doesn't. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite things to ask is, where does time, space, and matter come from, and how do you know? Well, when it comes to evolution, we seem to think that things get bigger, better, stronger, faster, smarter over time. This is just not the case. And we know that. To be clear, it's not the case. Just because you can arrange something in a particular order from smaller to larger does not mean it actually correlates to that thing becoming more complex over time. We have to remember that, again, there's a second law of thermodynamics known as entropy that tells us that everything is going from a state of order to disorder, from workable, usable energy and information to no workable, usable energy and information. And then we see this too when we see the first man, or you've got Homo erectus, there's a number, Australopithecus erectus. I mean, there's a number of them, but all of them are living beings. All of them are complex living beings that have a complex structure. Where did that come from? And then, of course, you've got morphology. This is another interesting thing as well. Morphology is the belief that we started from a single cell, and then that single cell branched out into all the different living things that we see today. We've never observed anything like that. None of that works. And the theory of evolution is totally anti-biblical, because the theory of evolution requires death in order for you to get bigger, better, stronger, faster, smarter over time. But we don't see that. As a matter of fact, the Bible says that death didn't come until after man came. Big problem there. We also have the days of creation. The days of creation, again, do not agree with what evolution declares. And then, of course, then there's the flood, and this is how we account for the fossils. But then again, here we go. This is one of my favorite things to point out. You've got this picture. 2 rhinoceri, I agree. 2 dinosaur, I agree. 2 rabbits, I agree. 2 cows, wait a minute. How many of the clean animals were on the ark? Yeah, no one knew about clean and unclean. So there should be 14 cows. And when you go down to the giraffe down in there, down that little part of the picture, how come there's only 2 of them? They split the hoof. They chew the cud. Should be 14 giraffe as well. Most people don't know that either. Then, of course, you got the evolutionary belief system that everything happened because of an asteroid hitting the planet or some kind of catastrophic event using volcanoes or tectonic plates and this, that, and the other. Still doesn't work. The 1 year on the ark, Then you've got the size of the ark, which can handle all of the animals, not a big deal. But the main thing you have to look at is how we look at the evidence. Do we look at it through biblical history or through secular history? Because history, again, when we look at it, you cannot have something that gets aged by a scientific basis. I love carbon-14 dating, but unfortunately, when you have something like that, that still doesn't give you an accurate dating method. It can get you close, but it won't give you an adequate or accurate dating method because it's all based on assumptions. We have to remember that. And this is an assumption right here. Is this a lot of water and a little bit of time? Or is it a lot of time and a little water? That's an assumption. So again, all these are flood basins. This is a washout flood. When you look at the Grand Canyon, it's a washout flood. And we can see all the evidence for that. Now, floods, the global flood, answers the question on how did all these fossils get here? Fossils are a trace or remnant of pre-existing life embedded and preserved in the earth crust. A recording of history, a record of the relative time of death and pre-existing life. Okay. A fossil can only give you so much information. It can tell you that something was alive and now it's dead. It's pretty much, you can get some other information about the organism itself, but you're limited on what you can get from the fossil record. There's no way a person can come up with this geologic time scale from the fossil record. That exists nowhere but in the textbook. Of course, then you have stratiformations. This is what happens when you have a flood. It all planes out like that. Several layers, more layers. And then again, when something dies, does it automatically fossilize? No. When it dies, it goes to the bottom, and then something eats it. Fossilization is supposed to happen after death, and it's supposed to happen quickly. But it doesn't work that way. When something dies, something else eats it until it's gone. Now, in this instance, you can have fossilization because you have something catastrophic that buries the animal very quickly and preserves it. Without that particular type of event, you don't get fossilization. And here's some very interesting fossils. You have fleshy parts fossilized. Did this fish survive decomposition for millions of years? Nope, couldn't do that. Again, this is I can't remember what this one, this was a juvenile that was just been born and they found it. Then they find these fossils of plants. Now, this is a very interesting, I like this one. It's called The Last Supper. This fish is fossilized in the process of eating another fish. Did that process take millions of years for him to eat the fish? No, this is a catastrophic event. Buried at birth. This one is fossilized in the process of giving birth. So once again, had to be catastrophic events to do this. Now, fossilization doesn't take millions of years either, because we have what's called OOP art, out of place artifacts. And this is one of them, a solid clock or a man-made clock in solid rock, fossilized in solid rock. You also have this fossilized hat, a hat that was found in a particular mine, but it was left there. We know when it was left there about 60 years ago. Well, it's completely fossilized now. That doesn't mean it was there millions of years, does it? And then we also have examples of living fossils. Crocodiles, dated back 230 million years. I don't think so. Army ants, cockroaches, all these different things. These are all living things that had to come from a living thing. God is a living being. He's the ultimate living being. Aquatic fossils are everywhere. We see these all over the place. Matter of fact, the majority of them are aquatic. Out of place fossils, once again, we talked about that. The coelacanth was deemed to be extinct for 65 million years until they started catching them off the coast of Hawaii, I think it was. So once again, it's all on how do we look at the information. A person from a secular history, man's history, is going to look at the dinosaur and say, oh, look at what evolution did. While the biblical history is going to say, wow, That's an air-breathing, land-walking animal. It was created on day 6 of the creation week, exactly the same week that man was created. I believe that's when we're looking at dinosaurs, we're going to be looking at Job chapter 40, verse 15 through 18. Behold, now Behemoth, and he moves his tail like a cedar. His bones are as strong as pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He's chief of the ways of God. Behemoth would have been a brachiosaur, what we might call brontosaurus in my day. Because when you think about it, do you think an elephant has a tail like a cedar? Does a hippopotamus? No, only the brontosaurus does that. What happened to the dinosaurs? Did they all starve, or did they eat too much? Did they become chickens? Are we eating dinosaurs today? Lots of different things could have happened to them. They could have evolved into birds. No, because you have specialty bones, specialty systems that do not evolve. They were designed that way. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope if you've had any questions while we're going through this, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Batman at any time. I'd be happy to help you on finding out exactly what the Bible says about creation, about salvation, and about how you can know the God of the Bible. Knowledge, all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are hidden in Yeshua HaMashiach. Whoops. That's Jesus alone. Yeshua HaMashiach. All the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are hidden in Jesus alone. Y'all have a great day, and God bless.